On the big story this morning, we focus on, to a great extent, the plight of journalists. Of late, there has been several arrests of journalists for many different reasons, some of which police is yet to tell us. But we understand, obviously, it's got a lot to do with the work that they do, the things they say, the stories that they write about, and so on and so forth. So we seem to be on the receiving end of a barrage of missiles of sorts. Are we doing something wrong? Could we do better? Can we expect the state to do better? Should we stop what we are doing? My guest is Moses Magola. Moses is the programs manager at Human Rights Network for Journalists, Uganda. Good morning.
Good morning. My pleasure to be here. Actually, it's my kind of premiere appearance on NTV. And I'm so pleased and honored by what you do here. But much, very, very important is the issue at hand, what is happening today. We have been watching as an organization that deals with rights of journalists, that defends and promotes press freedom. The unfoldings in the country lately, they do not paint a proper picture about the state of press freedom in the country and the condition of journalists.
Let's begin with establishing who a journalist is. Who is a journalist?
Of course, a journalist is somebody who acquires education, goes to university and higher institution of learning that offers that particular course, say in terms of journalism and mass communication like it was in the past. I think lately there has been like reforms, I think, within the sector with the liberalization of the sector taking course. I think there is always kind of new approaches and people draw back and come up with new kind of course units and stuff. So
when you say that a journalist is somebody that's gone to the university, done a degree in mass comm and so on, that would presuppose, I don't know the exact number, but that means about 98% of the people that call themselves journalists are not journalists. Because you know for a fact that there's many people that out of passion will say grab a camera and go and begin to cover things that are happening, or that will begin to write. When you go to many newsrooms, almost all of them, you'll find that 60 to 70%, in some newsrooms 80 to 90% of the people therein have never sat in a journalism class or a mass communication class. But they're doing an incredible job as journalists.
Whereas they always want to paint it as a sector, I mean as a profession, it seems that there are also quite a huge number of people who are passionate about what is done in this profession. And I think the door should not always be shut completely, because this profession deals with matters that affect the society. And it's as such that people are gifted in writing, people are gifted in oral communication, and they are able to highlight the plight of the people within which within the society within which they live. So by doing that, I think they serve a common good that journalism stands for. And at the end of the day, the door, I think, shouldn't be closely shut. And the institution I work with always agitates for people who do not have the requisite qualifications to go back. We know that there are people who are passionate, they are skilled and in journalism, and we always encourage that they go at least get a refresher course. And the institution itself offers some of these courses. Ourselves, we normally do these refreshers because we know there is a big gap that exists.
So how did we get here? Because we are seeing the state severally clamping down on media houses. Of late now, it's individual journalists that are being picked up in broad daylight. Back then we were hearing of kidnappings in the night and so on. That happened to a colleague of ours here. But now it's in broad daylight that they'll pick up somebody and it seems to be business as usual.
It isn't a new phenomenon. It has occurred for a very, very long time. And the good thing is there is proper documentation, case by case, that Human Rights Network for Journalists, does. Whichever incident occurs, we are able to document it. And the last 2-3 months, we've really documented a lot. And we have realized that there is a lot going on in the context, not only in terms of journalism, but the broad, we believe that the broad socio-political kind of undercurrents that have been going on, as we saw with the campaign of the age limit and removal, and could have acted as fueling factors. And from that time, I think there has not been a huge recovery, and we think some of these abuses and violations, we always like calling them violations because it fits into press freedom. At the end of the day, when a journalist is kidnapped, is assaulted, is arrested, or is denied access, they feed into the broader press freedom discourse, and we feel it's only the intensity that has gone up, but it's all like fomented by what is going on in the socio-political and security arenas.
How do we fight this? When we are disunited as journalists, there's no concerted effort. I mean, even with these arrests, you don't hear much of concerted efforts that, look, we are standing up and rising up as journalists and saying no to this. The media houses have decided they'll cover this. We as NTV have decided we are going to put the spotlight on this, even though it is in some cases competing media houses, but we're saying we're in this together. But you see, generally, you don't see a unity as journalists because of the schisms, the divisions, and the confusion there is. You know, there's this faction, there's the other faction, and little wonder this will keep happening, and there's no concerted effort from our part to try and nip it in the bud.
Absolutely. There is a solidarity vacuum presently, and it has been propagated by the negative competition that has been brought about by the liberalization, I think, of the sector, and people are really hunting for clients and stuff, but at the end of the day, we have been gripped with reality that it is before us, that much as we are serving the common good and working for the promotion of the whole development agenda, like most people want us to always carry on with the work, and also work for good governance. At the end of the day, we have been now pushed to the wall. It is happening a lot that the media is now conditioned to operate in a manner which is going to perpetrate and promote narratives of different formations within our society, like the political groups, like many other actors. They always want the media to cast them in their own image. So at the end of the day, we find ourselves in a very precarious position as the media, and the point of solidarity which you are alluding to here is one way to confront this very big challenge that has emerged. Not only that, we need again to also maybe pause back and review the functioning of the entire sector together with government to see if the existing frameworks, legislative frameworks, and other policy frameworks that are in place, if they are now serving for the well-being and growth of the sector. Apparently, you can even tell that there is probably no serious political goodwill, because some of the legislation that is propping up again is kind of restrictive. There are quite a number of legislations I can point to that do not permit the sector to thrive and the journalists to do their work freely. The Press and Journalists Act is being challenged in court by us and other organizations because of certain clauses we didn't agree with. And some of those even address the issue you talked about of licensing and all other issues, but it's a matter in court which I may not delve into so much. The Anti-Terrorism Act carries some clauses that can implicate any journalist for the work that they do if at all it's promoting the agenda of terrorists. And Pornographic Act. Many laws on that we have that are not that protective. But what worsens the whole scenario is now lately when it comes to operations and how there is this offensive that has come up from state actors. Mainly we have the police that is at the forefront. In all the reports since 2009 that we've been documenting, the police has been at the helm, and it is an open secret that when it comes to violations of rights, including press freedoms and rights of journalists, police comes up with all these, like huge numbers. And it is just recently when, again, even security organs now, like ISO, like the arrest of the Univision journalist, you saw again it was at the center. So I think it is now imperative that security groups again do an inward look. The state actually, I believe these people they work under the state, and the state has to, the government that has to rein in on its security organs to bring them to check so that they respect press freedom, they respect the rights of journalists, because journalists are serving them.
All right, now that you talk about rights, we have got responsibilities too.
Yes.
Are we playing those responsibilities as should be? When you see what's written in the newspapers, when you listen to radio stations or watch TV stations, do you see that we are being responsible? Because it's good to also reflect on the work that we do, put the spotlight on ourselves, because sometimes there could be utterances that are just unacceptable. I'm sure, like me, sometimes you flip the channels on TV or keep turning radio stations, and sometimes you hear things that should just have no place on any media platform. Are we being responsible on our part?
The question of responsibility is one again that we are grappling with. There are some instances whereby people have not been professional, I must admit, but in some other situations, that narrative has been propagated by perpetrators. There has been effort to take some of these journalists for refreshers. It hasn't happened a lot. But again, in this current era, we believe the best way of professionalism is self-regulation. World over, they're pushing towards self-regulation as the best mode of professionalizing the sector and ensuring
how do you get to do that?
Adherence to ethical codes. Unfortunately, that campaign in our country has been slowed down by I think again this divisionism that has propped up. People do not want to work together. I know in other countries it is working, self-regulation, but in Uganda I think there has been a challenge in terms of having the campaign take root. So it again calls for the concerted effort from all the stakeholders in the sector to ensure that the people within the sector are inward looking, and the punitive measures arise from within. But there is a risk when it's entirely exposed to state actors. Of course, they are meeting their obligations, but when you leave it out to them, there's sometimes overzealousness and high-handedness that we may not have control over. And there's also the element of how of people going an extra mile and abusing the law itself, and not adhering to due diligence, like you saw, like you've seen, media houses shut down without proper, backing from the law, and it's not anchored in the law. And yet, in a situation whereby press freedom is respected, such due diligence is complied to.
All right, it's good that you folks are following up this issue. We want to see how we keep following up events like this one, and how we can get united as journalists, because today it's them, tomorrow it could be you, me, or anybody else. So we need to see how we eventually nip this in the bud. Absolutely.
We need to come together in solidarity. Have all leaders of associations, media associations come together, managers of media houses. This is a very, very tough moment that needs a lot of action from them, but also the Ministry of Information and ICT. There are so many people who are journalists in there, but they are watching and they are not saying much. They need to rise up so that we protect media space, which is really being stifled at the moment.
Okay. Moses Magola from Human Rights Network for Journalists. Thank you for talking to us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, so that's it for today's edition of The Big Story. Thank you for joining us. My name is Joel Senyonyi. Good morning.